You are listening to your auntie's favorite DJ, DJ Tricey Trice.
What the pod? What the pod? What the pod? What the pod?
What is going on, y'all? It's DJ Tricey Trice, and welcome to What the Pod, episode 11. Yeah, episode 11. All right, so I've decided at episode 11 that I'm going to start doing the podcast live, and the reason being is because I want to have a little bit more interaction. I also want to cover more than one podcast during one episode, right? So what I'm going to do is throughout the week, I'm going to listen to podcasts. I'm going to aggregate a list, and then every Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. my time, which is Pacific time, 9 a.m. Eastern, I'm going to get on here, go live, tell you what podcast you need to listen to. That way, it can live on your timeline all week, and you can reference it. And you can share it with your friends, your family, people who don't know what podcasts are, all of that. So I'm going to be going around the podcast app and just finding dope episodes for you to listen to. Today's episode is really focused on the podcast that feed the soul. And for me, I'm turning my little music up. So for all of y'all that don't know, I'm producing my own show here. So I'm clicking all the buttons over here. Look, I can say, oop, I got tech issues, but I don't. So I ain't gonna say that. But for those of you who are listening, you're listening after the fact. The people who can actually visually see this on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, they get to see what it's like to just have a quick podcast morning show. And that's really what I want to do. That's my intention here. So today's episode, I'm going to jump right on in. The first podcast that I'm featuring is one that's a little bit different. Oh, wait, I didn't introduce myself. You are now listening to your auntie's favorite DJ and now your fairy pod mother. Man, I love sound effects. That was another reason why I had to do this. I'm like, I need them to hear my little fairy thing. I hit this like 200 times yesterday, and India was pissed. So, welcome to the show. I'm going to make sure I have that as a well-oiled machine. Maybe I'll pre-record that so I can get it right every single morning. But jumping right into the episode, the podcast number one that I'm featuring is The Midnight Miracle. And this is Dave Chappelle's podcast on Luminary. But it features Talib, Kweli, and Yasin. For people who don't know, that's the artist formerly known as Mos Def. When I tell you this is the podcast that you need, but you did not know you needed, it's just such a feel-good vibe. I mean, they got lo-fi beats going like what you're hearing in the background right now while they're telling these stories about awesome people in the industry, things that have happened to them. I won't let you know what's happening on this specific one. I listened to episode 1, side A, which is short, so just go listen to it. It's just talking about inspiration and talking about being human, having really human experiences and learning from life as you go. I want to give it away. I really want to give it away. The content was kind of heavy, but it felt really light. And I would suggest throwing this into your podcast rotation in the afternoon when you need to make it to 5 o'clock. You're like, it's 1:30. I need something kind of entertaining, because when you put them headphones on and you listen to it, it feels like you're watching TV, which Dave Chappelle is really good at. So I'm not surprised that this podcast doesn't disappoint. This one is newer. Again, please go to the podcast app, whatever you use, Apple, Spotify, whatever, and give The Midnight Miracle by Dave Chappelle, Yasin Bey, and Talib Kweli a quick run, because it's a good one. Let's give them a hand clap for those podcasts. That's a legit one. It's added to my rotation. Now, the second one that I'm featuring is called Why Won't You Date Me by Nicole Buyer. Now, this one's been out since like 2017. And for those of you who don't know who Nicole Buyer is, she got pretty famous from the show on Netflix, Nailed It, which is a cooking show that I love so dearly. It's so near and dear to my heart, because that is how I cook, y'all. I really look at stuff on Pinterest. I get all the ingredients. I start cooking it, and I'm like, man, these instructions really don't, add up how they need to. I don't really follow them to the T. So now I'm substituting, and I'm throwing things in, and at the end, and I'm like, this is disgusting. It's my way. But she is hilarious on that show, and this podcast really is hilarious in that same way, using her same kind of personality. The specific episode that I listened to had JB Smoove in it, and it was called How to Be Sexually Smart. And I was thinking, JB Smoove, like how he gonna tell us to be smooth? I always think about that Almost Christmas movie with Carrie Hilson when he was dating her on the side, cheating on his wife, and I'm thinking to myself, ain't no way in hell JB Smoove could pull Carrie Hilson. But then I listen to the podcast, and I'm like, maybe this dude is one hilarious, two super smart. It sounds like he's from Chicago. But based on what this podcast is, he was talking about Stony Island and all that. So he got a good heart. Look at me automatically vouching for people who live in the Midwest. Like, we the realest in the game, But he just really gives good advice on how to navigate the dating world, being yourself with your expectations correct and giving out what you want to, get back in, and really how to be smooth. He also has a podcast. I'll probably feature it on one of my future episodes, but this dude really gave good advice. Nicole Buyer is hilarious. It was an entertaining laugh, and you definitely should check it out. The topics are hilarious, but R-rated. So if you're listening to it out loud at work or around your kids, I really wouldn't suggest that. There's a lot of suggestive language. But overall, I'm going to give Nicole Buyer and JB Smoove a hand clap for that episode, man. That really did it for me. That surprised me. Unlocking Us is the next podcast, the third and final podcast that I'll be featuring today. And this one is by Brene Brown. Brene Brown is an award-winning author. I mean, I think she's a life coach. I'm not sure what she really does, but her books are fire. Okay, Daring Greatly was a great book for me and my wife in 2020. It's really just about taking that leap, being that brave person that you know you are. And Brené, as we call her Nene in my household, she just... it's all the good things, man. She's talked to Oprah. She's talked to all these things, but a lot of people still haven't heard about Brene Brown who are not familiar with the self-help world. But the specific episode that I'm talking about it happened in December, and it's got Dolly Parton in it. And Dolly Parton is already one of my favorite human beings, right? She's just a humanitarian. She doesn't care what you look like. She doesn't care what your sexual orientation is, how much money you have, what kind of addictions you have. She believes that you can love and should be loved, right? Like, Dolly Parton. I mean, she speaks in her community about which is the country music community, about LGBT rights, which is like, what the, like, I'm sure they don't want to hear that shit half the time. But Dolly really puts it in a way that's like, hey, we're good people. We're Christian folks. If we're Christians, then you should know better. Kind of slap you on the hand because you should be a good person. And that's what this is about. She's really focusing on saying you don't have to believe any kind of thing. You don't have to be this stellar person in order for you to spread love to those around you. It's just all around feel good episode talking about Dolly Parton's book that she has. But the one thing that I took from that, and that Dolly and Brené were talking about, and they talk about shame. And in Brene Brown's books, she frequently talks about shame and how we need to really go into those dark places to pull out things to learn more about ourselves, right? So Dolly said in the episode, she said, shame can't survive when it's spoken out loud. I was like, oh. I've been telling people that since I heard that episode because it's true. The things that you're ashamed about, being poor, not having the resources that you need, coming from whatever family, feeling like you're less than, being ashamed of how you look, the things you say, any of these things, right? If we can live our lives free of shame, it's just such a freeing kind of experience. And then Dolly was talking about in her music back in the day, she was banned. I ain't know nothing about that. She was banned. She was talking about suicide and all kinds of things that were happening in her community. And she felt like it was her mission in life to talk about these things, to bring light to it so that people wouldn't struggle alone. Because we'll always, me, you, whoever's listening to this, you'll be the person suffering at some point. So it's best to love those who are suffering right now. And it's just, to start off your morning, that's a really good one just to go with. So again, those 3 podcasts. Oh, wait. I got to clap it up for Brené and Dolly just because they awesome human beings. That's my peeps. Nay, hope you're watching this. Please come be a guest on my podcast. So the podcast 1 that I featured was The Midnight Miracle, Dave Chappel, Talib, Kweli, Yasin, Byer. And podcast number 2, Why Won't You Date Me, Nicole Buyer and JB Smoove. That episode's out there, Being Sexually Smart. Podcast number 3, the episode that I'm talking about, is with Dolly Parton. This podcast is hosted by Brene Brown, featuring Dolly Parton, and it was back in December. All of the links are down in the description if you want to just click them and listen to it. You can go ahead and do that. And again, y'all, I'm a DJ. I'm wrapping up the show. My intention here is for this show to be about 12 to 15 minutes so that you can listen to something quickly on your way to somewhere and still have time to actually listen to the podcast that I'm talking about. But I always end each episode with a song because I'm a DJ, and I want you to add this to your playlist, Auntie.
Hey, Auntie.
Yes, okay. This song is called F-U-C-K, and before you say that, Auntie, I know it's a lot of cussing and carrying on happening. You don't want to wear your bonnets in public and everything like that. I'm not asking you to be ratchet. It actually stands for Friend You Can Keep. And Victoria Monet is an artist that I followed a lot in 2020. She pretty much got me through the quarantine, but she uses actual instruments, and she's a vocalist. Like, it just, her music is an absolute vibe. So listen to a little bit of F-U-C-K, Friend You Can Keep. Let me turn it up for you a little bit. I had it on the background. Y'all hear that real drum set in the back? Just, you know, you be listening to music, you be hearing the thump, same beat. You know, it's just thump, little turn on the beat. Yeah, all this thing, you know. Sometimes you just want to hear actual instruments. And this is what Victoria Monet gives. So, Auntie, add that to your playlist. Again, my name is DJ Tricey Trice. I'm your auntie's favorite DJ and now your fairy pod mother. Please tune in next week to What the Pod right here on wherever you're looking at it. Or if you're listening to it, it's after the fact. It's okay. Just listen to it in your car, whatever. Thank y'all for listening. And I will see you soon.